In this video, I'm going to be looking at the learning experiences offered in Stage 1, Lesson 2 of the unit. Prior to this lesson, the students would have been presented with the video and letter from the Sister City Association that contain the problem that's the basis of the unit, which is that the Sister City Association offers a scholarship to 2 students in Japan for them to come to Australia and study for a year. Unfortunately, last year, no students applied for the scholarship. So the Sister City Association is seeking assistance from the Cape Verde High School students to create a resource that would get Japanese students excited about school life in Australia and applying for the scholarship. Now, all of that content is presented in Japanese. So prior to this lesson, the students would have looked at the video and created a Japanese script of a section of the video, so that as a whole class they've got a complete script. They'll then use online dictionaries to understand the content of that script. As this is an authentic text, there will of course be words and phrases the students are not familiar with, which is why they'll be using the dictionaries. They'll produce a rough translation in pairs and enter both the script and translation into a Google Doc that was created by the teacher. In this lesson, the goal is for them to review and consolidate that work. So this time each pair will be assigned the translation that was created by another pair. They'll review that translation and offer notes in the Google Doc to help the other pair improve their work. They may also note things that they've missed or mistranslated themselves. The pairs will then get their own translation back to look at in the Google Doc. They'll look through those notes and try and improve their translation. Next, as a class, they'll discuss the translation of the video line by line to agree upon a final translation. And finally, they'll create a master version in the Google Doc of a complete translation for the whole video, and it will be accessible to all members of the class. In the second part of this lesson, they'll be reframing the problem by putting it into subtitles for the video. It's an authentic text form, it's very real world, and it has the added advantage that they'll be forced to pick out the most important parts because subtitles are necessarily quite short. So that's one of the reasons they've been asked to do this. The other is that the principal has noted that on the school open nights, the Japanese department has very little material and resources to display and show the parents, mostly because the texts and things that are produced by the students are usually in Japanese, and of course this doesn't mean anything to the parents. So the principal has requested that the students create a subtitled version of the video, and it will be displayed at the upcoming school night as a really great example of what the students are doing. The students will work in pairs on a section of the video because creating subtitles takes quite a bit of time. So they'll only work on one section, but as a whole, the class will complete the video. The students will be scaffolded in this effort with a lesson on subtitling and the points to take into consideration. This includes things like the number of characters that can fit across the screen, the position of the subtitles on the screen, and the font and color that they choose. They'll also get a mini lesson on how to use EasySub, which is a free subtitling software that is used by some professional translators. Another thing that the students will have to look at and will be included in their mini lessons is things that come up in subtitling, such as jokes that don't translate well or cultural references that don't have a direct translation. Once the students have had those mini lessons, they'll create their subtitle files and then they'll watch each other's subtitle files and provide feedback using a rubric that the teacher has created. And this is the rubric. They'll be looking at the content of the subtitles, so were appropriate selections made in the translation and does it convey tone and cultural context, and also at technical details such as the formatting of the subtitles, whether or not they're easy to read and follow. The students will be encouraged to give constructive criticism and also to offer praise. Once students have received that feedback, they'll use it to proof their subtitle files, and then the class will generate a single subtitle file for the whole video. And that subtitled file will be sent to the principal for OpenLay. In terms of problem-based learning, this lesson is obviously at the start of the problem-based learning cycle, where students are scaffolded to understand the problem and be able to write it out in their own words. In this case, the problem itself is presented in a second language, so the writing it out phase and understanding it is highly scaffolded, much more so than you would expect in problem-based learning. There'll be the use of online dictionaries, teacher-directed activities in some cases, the teachers helping the students to refine their translation, and then using the subtitle activity to help them simplify it and create a really concise version. It also will give them something to be really proud of, that they can display a finished product to the school community. During this lesson, the teacher will be aided by the fact that there are only 6 students, so the teacher will be able to micro-teach, moving between pairs, asking them leading questions about their choice of words and phrases. And during that stage, the teacher will also note which students are struggling to comprehend the nature of the problem. Because if the students don't get this stage right, there's no way really for them to move on to the next stages. It's very important that they understand what they're being asked to do. So if the teacher notices students who are struggling, they'll be guided through the use of leading questions and modelling. The teacher will also facilitate a whole class discussion about the translations, so that they can develop the master translation. The teacher will encourage students to defend and justify their translations so that they can get to that master translation stage. The mini lessons on subtitling and the use of the EG software will be provided by the teacher, as will the rubric for the peer assessment. And finally, the most important thing to come out of this lesson will be that the teacher is encouraging the students to think about how they understand the problem and how they would phrase it in their own words. This lesson is replete with higher order thinking skills. The students will have to defend and justify their choice of words when it comes to their translations, synthesize the very best ideas from the class and make judgments there, prioritize what's most important to include, so that they get the master translation and then a subtitled translation. The creation of that end product with the subtitled video is arguably real world, and in terms of Bloom's taxonomy, we're looking at creation and evaluation in the peer assessment. In terms of the SAMAR framework, this task is unarguably transformative, where students would not have been able to create such a professional subtitled video without the use of ICT. It will give them something to be really proud of at the end of the day. And that's the end of Stage 1, Lesson 2.